Yeah, I would say with Tua, he's our starting quarterback. So, I don't know how we could say it any more clearly. We've been that way through this season and what he's done, and what Mike and Tua, Bevel, Chandler, the coaching staff have all done. They've all worked tremendously hard, all of them together. So, Tua's, we anticipate him, talking with the doctors and consultants and everyone we've dealt with. We fully expect him back next year, 100% ready to go, and then we'll get through all those decisions. Like I said, just like we talked about every player on the roster. And obviously I understand because it's Tua, and that's why the question's being asked. But we'll go through our process, but he is our starting quarterback and will be next season.
This is for a year with concussions. And again, I'm few credits short of my MD, but what I've read is that you have a couple you might be susceptible to getting more easily. Is that a concern with Tua, and what confidence do you have that this won't be a recurring issue for him?
Well, I think from what our doctors and the consultants we've talked to through the NFLPA, that is not a true statement. So for us, I don't think he's any more prone than anyone else. So for us, we're just going through and letting the doctors and the medical staff and the people in that field, like you said, that know a lot more. But from everything we've been told, that is not a concern.
Yeah, specifically, these are the doctors that are working with him directly and individually, as opposed to a generalization,
I've heard this a couple of times now. He's no more prone to a concussion than anyone else. Okay, that's fine, but he's smaller than other quarterbacks. The physics aren't on his side. He gets thrown to the ground. His head hits the ground. That doesn't happen to other quarterbacks. And haven't we heard for years with each passing concussion, the consequences could be greater? I mean, Javid Best never got cleared to play again for a reason. And, we're all similarly subject to concussions, the brains inside of our skulls. We all have brains. We all have skulls. I don't understand how we're glossing over the fact that Tua is more prone to having his head hit the ground than other quarterbacks. It's not, well, if he gets hit in the head, is he more likely or less likely to have a concussion? He's more likely to hit his head on the ground because of his size and because of the way he plays. Chris, that's the real concern that I would have if he was my son.
Yeah, I agree. That's the number one concern here, and will be the concern going forward. It's just first off, everything we've been told, or I've been told, of course, the more concussions you have had, the more susceptible you are to them, and of course, the more long-term damage it can do to you. And this was 3 within a 3-month span, so I can't imagine that's good. I don't know what the statistics are to how much more that makes you susceptible to ones in the future. I don't know. But to your point, the concern of it happening again is real just because of the size of the human being. Exactly right. I mean, this is again, that's where Miami's going to have to really think long and hard and invest in a big-time backup quarterback this year. They got a team that's ready right now. They're ready. I mean, it's like not much they need on their roster for us to sit there and go, they can challenge, anybody in the AFC to be a Super Bowl football team. The quarterback's the big glaring mark. And can he actually, sustain the beating of a full season? And I think that's a fair question to have. It was hard at Alabama, and he was on an all-star team that was way better than the rest of college football with a bunch of first-round offensive linemen and people protecting him. Let alone this is the NFL and it's a different game, and let alone we saw him get concussions on 3 hits this year where you'd go, we'd call that an average tackle? I mean, that's really what it is. That's, to me, is the concerning thing. Those are plays where it's like, hey, Tom Brady at 45 gets hit like that, and he doesn't lose bodily control to that point, right? So this is a tough spot for the Dolphins. Yeah, he's a first-round pick, a top 10 pick. They've invested in him. They've started to develop an offense around him and his skill set, and this is a big issue they're going to have to deal with all offseason.
This is the simplest way I can put it. If Chris and I yesterday in the studio together had said something bad about Rodney Harrison and he had stormed the room, if he threw me into that fake brick wall behind Chris Simms and then threw Chris into that fake brick wall, I'm going to emerge from the experience more injured than Chris because I'm smaller and I'm lighter and I'm weaker. And that's just the way it is. That's the way it works. As I said, the physics are not on Tua Tagovailoa's side, and that's what needs to change or he's going to continue to have this issue. Now, on the other thing that I want to throw the challenge flag on before we move on.
Yeah.
They keep saying he's our starting quarterback. He's our starting quarterback. We don't know what else we can do to get you to. But here's what you can do. You can pick up his fifth-year option. You can sign him to a long-term deal. If you want us to really believe you're all in with this guy, actions speak louder than words. Until then, it's just words, and it's not binding on anyone. How many times have we heard words that don't ultimately mesh with action? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But if you really want to get the questions over with, if you're sick of the questions, Miami Dolphins, pick up his option today. Pick it up today. The deadline's in May. Pick it up today. Guaranteed pay for 2024. Do it now if you want us to shut up about it. Or extend it to a long-term contract, a real long-term contract, not a fluff phony one, a real one. If you want this issue to go away because it isn't an issue, not because you don't want to talk about it, but if it's not an issue, you have a way to make it not an issue. And they won't, Chris. They don't want to paint themselves into that corner because they don't know what's going to happen in the future.
No, that's right. They won't. They're definitely not the long-term contract thing. And I can't fault them. I wouldn't want to give him a fifth-year option at this point and have that money guaranteed. No way. You know, I would go like, hey, it's almost like the approach of Daniel Jones that the Giants took. Hey, you know we like you. We're the ones that took you. We fired a damn head coach because of you, and he won 10 games 2 years in a row. You know, we've spent $100 million on giving you weapons to make you look good or look better, right? So, yeah, they want to make this work with Tua. They do, and they could sell that to him, but they can't invest long-term in him yet, at least in my opinion. There's too much diciness here still in this equation to go, oh, yeah, hey, here's a fifth-year option, and here's, $20-something million, blah, blah, blah. No, I would want to go, hey, you got to play another year and play well, and we got to see you stay healthy before we can just start throwing, big chunks of change at you.
And I think also what they learned in 2021 when Deshaun Watson possibly arriving was looming over the team and the impact it had on Tua, I think they know they can't do anything to suggest any equivocation on Tua until they're just done with him.
Exactly.
And then just rip the Band-Aid off.
Right.
Because it had a negative impact on his performance.
They've just
on
built
his
him
psyche,
up,
on everything.
right? Yeah.
They don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
Right. But once they're done with him, they'll do it.
Yes.
If they get to the point where they're done with him, they won't hesitate to do it. But they're not going to breathe a word of it until they're done with it. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.